Okay, so you're here with us on the deep dive because you're the kind of person who likes to, really get a grasp on things, right? Not just skim the surface. Like really understand the nitty-gritty details.
Yeah, I think a lot of people out there, feel like they get bombarded with information,
Right.
but they don't actually know what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's where we come in.
Yeah, you want to get to the bottom of things, and that's exactly what we're going to try to do today. We are going to be diving deep on a really, really fascinating case from Washington State, and we've got some pretty wild source material.
Yeah, this one's got it all.
Yeah.
This one's got it all.
It's got alleged corruption. It's got questions about public records and like access to public records and kind of what happens when someone in government might not want those records to see the light of day.
Yeah, it's a case study in transparency or lack thereof.
Or the struggle for transparency. Yeah. So let me just lay out the basic scene here. Okay. We're talking about a local government in Washington State, and there's this guy, Ed Kilduff. He's a geologist, which, you might not think a geologist would be at the center of a story about, like, government corruption, but...
Well, he's got a trained eye.
Yeah.
For the land.
Right, and like, environmental issues, which is a big part of what we're going to talk about. So he starts noticing some stuff in his local government that he's like, this doesn't seem quite right. This doesn't seem kosher.
Right, and specifically, this is all about land use stuff.
Yes.
And wetlands and things like that.
Exactly. So this is where it gets interesting, right? Kilduff was friends with a guy named Chris Law, who was the former code enforcement officer for the county.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris Law had shared with him a really striking situation involving a local council member. So apparently there was this piece of property that was near this council member's house, and a potential buyer for that property thought it was a wetland and backed out of the sale because of that.
I see. So that's, red flag number one, right?
Yeah.
Like, this might be a wetland. We're not going to buy it.
Right.
We don't want to deal with all the regulations and all that.
Yeah. And of course, wetlands have, legal protections because of their environmental importance.
Right. Exactly. You can't just build whatever you want, wherever you want.
Yeah. You got to do things by the book. So this is what caught the code enforcement officer's attention.
Okay.
Because despite this, potential wetland issue, there were no official reports or processes that had legally reclassified the site as a non-wetland.
So no one had come in and said, no, that's fine.
Right.
It's not a wetland.
And yet development on this property went ahead anyway.
Interesting. So there's already a sense that someone is getting preferential treatment?
Right. And so the code enforcement officer starts looking into it more deeply. And this is where it gets really juicy. He finds out, allegedly, that the county manager, a guy named Mike Thomas, had intervened directly on behalf of the council member and the council member's friend who wanted to develop the land.
Okay, so now we're seeing those connections coming into play. It's not just an abstract rule that's being bent. It's like, there's a specific person who is benefiting here.
And it gets even more tangled. The county executive's wife, Jennifer Thomas, also got involved.
Oh, boy.
And she allegedly used her purported expertise. And I emphasize purported because there's no mention of any formal qualifications that she had to just declare that the land was not a wetland. This happened with no reports, no scientific assessments, no public record.
It sounds like a pretty sweet deal if you can get it for the council member's friend.
Yeah. So, the code enforcement officer, Chris Law, he's not exactly thrilled about all of this. He sees this and he's like, okay, this is textbook insider baseball here.
Yeah, he's seeing the system work.
Yeah.
In a way that it's not supposed to.
But his concerns did not exactly lead to some kind of, big official investigation.
Right.
Instead, he faced pressure from his superiors to basically bury his findings. They wanted him to sanitize his investigation file, remove any mention of what he had uncovered.
Oh, wow. So instead of investigating the potential wrongdoing, they're trying to sweep it under the rug.
Yeah, and this is, classic move in a potential corruption situation, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You don't want the information to get out.
Right. If you're trying to hide something, the last thing you want is a paper trail.
Yeah, and to make matters worse, even the county prosecuting attorney, a guy named Randy Gaylord, got involved. He allegedly personally took the file and removed what they called offensive information from it.
Well, the prosecuting attorney, who's supposed to be upholding the law.
Yeah, the top legal guy in the county.
Is involved in this cover-up.
Yeah.
That's pretty alarming.
Yeah. So, Chris Law, he's not backing down. He's like, no, this is not right. He files a whistleblower complaint, which, by the way, is a formal way to report suspected illegal or unethical activities.
Right, right.
And he ends up losing his job.
Oh, wow. So it sounds like he was punished
for
trying to do the right thing.
Yeah. So this is where Ed Kilduff, our geologist friend, comes back into the picture.
Okay.
Chris Law, knowing that all of his documentation, all of his work was essentially at risk of being destroyed, he urges Kilduff to file a public records request for the entire file.
Smart move, because once it's out in the public domain, it's much harder to just make it disappear.
Exactly. So in 2015, Kilduff files this request. And what happens? Nothing.
Nothing.
The county basically stonewalls him. They don't give him the records for about a year.
A whole year.
Yeah, a whole year of silence.
It's a pretty clear sign that they're trying to hide something.
Yeah. And this is a tactic that a lot of governments use, right?
Unfortunately, yeah. It's a way to delay and obstruct.
Yeah, hope that, the person requesting the records will just get tired and give up.
Right, right.
But Kilduff, he's not giving up. He's like, okay, you're not going to respond to my request. I'm going to sue you. So he files a lawsuit to compel the county to release the records. And it's during this legal battle that another crazy detail comes out. San Juan County had implemented some procedures that seem specifically designed to make it harder for citizens to access public records.
Oh, really? Like what?
So one of them was that they required individuals to exhaust all internal county appeal processes before they could even file a lawsuit.
Wow. So even more hoops to jump through.
Yeah, and the other one, and this is wild, the public records officer for the county was a county council member.
Wait, that doesn't seem right.
Yeah, talk about a conflict of interest.
Right. I mean, if you're trying to get public records, that might implicate the county council.
Yeah.
And the person you have to go through is a council member.
Yeah, they're not exactly going to be incentivized to give you those records.
Exactly. It's a system designed to protect itself.
Exactly. And we actually spoke to a public records lawyer for this deep dive, a guy named Nick Power, and he called these types of rules mini-laws.
Mini-laws.
Yeah, and he pointed out that they really go against the spirit of Washington State's Public Records Act, which is supposed to give citizens, pretty direct access to information.
So it's like they're trying to create their own little legal system that shields them from accountability.
Yeah, so Kilduff's case goes to trial in Skagit County, and the judge there rules that he has to follow these ridiculous county procedures before he can sue.
Oh, so he hits a wall.
Yeah, and think about what that meant in practice. It meant that he would have had to appeal his records request to Randy Gaylord, the prosecuting attorney, the very guy who was accused of concealing the records in the first place.
Oh, come on. That's absurd.
It's like the ultimate catch-22.
Right. How can you get a fair hearing when the person you're appealing to is the one who's allegedly in the wrong?
Exactly. So let's just pause here for a second and recap the players in this whole saga, right? We've got Randy Gaylord, the prosecuting attorney, who's supposed to be the top law enforcement official, but is accused of basically directing employees to break the law, retaliating against those who refused, and concealing public records.
Right. And he's also the one who gets to decide whether or not those records are released.
Yeah, a lot of power in one person's hands.
Yeah, that's a recipe for trouble.
Then you've got Bob Jarman, the former council member who allegedly intervened to make sure his friend got that sweet land deal and bypassed all the environmental regulations.
Right, so he's using his position for personal gain.
Yeah, and then there's Jamie Stevens, the current council member, who is also serving as the public records officer, which is just a huge conflict of interest.
Yeah, like we said before, it's a system designed to protect itself.
Yeah, and let's not forget Mike Thomas, the county manager, who allegedly colluded with these elected officials to give preferential treatment to certain people, and then used his wife's questionable expertise to basically rubber stamp the whole thing.
Right, so it's a whole network of people working together.
Yeah, and then to top it all off, there's Judge Stiles from Skagit County who actually fined Kilduff $10,000 for not following the county's bogus procedures while he was trying to get these records.
Wow, $10,000. That's a pretty hefty fine.
Yeah, and a lot of people saw that as just a way to intimidate him.
Yeah, to make him back down.
Yeah, but Kilduff is not intimidated. He decides he's going to appeal this decision all the way to the Washington State Supreme Court.
Good for him.
His argument is really simple. He's saying, look, the Public Records Act in this state gives citizens the right to sue if they're denied access to public information. They shouldn't have to go through all of this internal rigmarole, especially when the people running that process are the ones who are potentially in the wrong.
Yeah, that's a pretty compelling argument.
Yeah, and the Supreme Court agrees with him. In a unanimous decision, 9-0, they rule against San Juan County.
Wow, 9-ish, sure. That's a pretty strong message.
Yeah, it was a huge victory for government transparency in Washington state, and it sent a clear signal that local governments can't just make up their own rules to prevent citizens from accessing information.
Right, they can't just hide behind bureaucracy.
Yeah, the court recognized that Kilduff was trying to fix a system that seemed designed to protect corruption.
And this ruling had implications beyond just this one case.
Oh, yeah, because other counties in Washington state had started to implement similar tactics to San Juan County.
So this decision put a stop to that.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
So, the role of the prosecuting attorney in all of this is something that really jumps out at me, right? The source material actually says it's hard to believe that the very person who was accused of obstructing access to these records was also the person who was in charge of the appeals process.
Yeah, it's just mind-boggling.
Right. It's like having the fox guard the henhouse.
Exactly. And it highlights how easily corruption can thrive when there's no real oversight.
Yeah. Yeah, and this whole story really boils down to one fundamental principle, right? Public records belong to the public.
Right. They don't belong to government officials.
Yeah, they're not the private property of, whoever happens to be in power at the moment.
Exactly. And when the public can't access information about what their government is doing, that's when you start to see real problems.
Yeah, you lose trust, you lose accountability.
Right. It creates a breeding ground for corruption.
Yeah, and what's amazing to me is that Ed Kilduff kept fighting for years despite facing so much opposition. He was ridiculed, he was attacked, he was fined, and he just kept going.
That's incredible. It shows how much he believed in what he was doing.
Yeah, and his motivation was really simple. He just wanted to expose the truth and make sure that the government was accountable to the people.
That's a powerful story, and it's a reminder that one person can make a difference.
Yeah, so as we wrap this up, let's just recap the main points for you. This case out of Washington state reveals how corruption can operate at a local level and how some officials might try to cover up their actions. We saw a code enforcement officer get retaliated against for trying to do his job, and we saw a county implement procedures that seemed designed to prevent citizens from accessing information.
Right. And we saw how the court system can sometimes be used to intimidate people who are trying to hold the powerful accountable.
Yeah, but ultimately we also saw how the legal system can work to protect transparency and how one person's persistence can lead to real change.
This case is a reminder that we all have a role to play in ensuring that our government is open and accountable.
And that brings us to our final thought for you. What can you do in your own community to fight for transparency and hold your local officials accountable? What are the signs of potential corruption, and how can you speak up if you see something that doesn't seem right?
We hope this deep dive has given you the tools and the inspiration to be an active and engaged citizen. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
See you later.